Dr. Maya Rodriguez had been working at the Space Research Center for 3 years, but nothing could have prepared her for the email that appeared in her inbox that Tuesday morning. The subject line read, "Special Assignment, Alien Exchange Student." Program. She nearly choked on her coffee. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, clicking the message open. The director's words were clear, but felt completely unreal. An actual alien from a distant planet was coming to Earth, and somehow, Maya had been chosen to be their guide and supervisor. The alien's name was Zix, and according to the brief report, they came from a planet called Kepler 440b, which was apparently 47 light-years away from Earth. The whole situation felt like something out of a science fiction movie. Not her regular Tuesday at the lab. Maya spent the rest of the morning frantically reading everything she could find about first contact protocols. The research center had prepared for this moment for years, but now that it was actually happening, she felt completely unprepared. What do you say to an alien? How do you even shake hands with someone from another planet? By afternoon, Maya found herself standing in the main laboratory, nervously adjusting her lab coat for the 5th time. The other scientists had gathered around, everyone whispering excitedly. Nobody had ever seen a real alien before, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. When the doors finally opened, Maya's first thought was that Zix looked surprisingly human-like. They walked onto legs, had to arms, and a head in roughly the right place. But the similarities ended there. Zix had pale, almost translucent skin that seemed to shimmer slightly under the laboratory lights. Their eyes were enormous, taking up nearly half their face, and they didn't seem to blink at all. "Hello," Zix said in perfectly clear English. Though their voice had an odd, musical quality to it, "I am Zix. I am here to learn about human behavior and assist with your research." Maya stepped forward, trying to appear more confident than she felt. "Welcome to Earth, Zix. I'm Dr. Maya Rodriguez, and I'll be your guide during your stay here." Zix's large eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made Maya slightly uncomfortable. The alien pulled out what looked like a small, glowing tablet and began tapping on it rapidly. Maya assumed they were taking notes about their first meeting. "This is fascinating," Zix said, still typing. "Your species uses sound vibrations for communication, and you perform small physical gestures while speaking. Very interesting." Maya smiled nervously. "Yes, well, we call that talking and body language. Would you like me to show you around the facility?" As they walked through the laboratory, Maya noticed that Zix was documenting everything every time Maya pointed to a piece of equipment, adjusted her glasses, or tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Zix would quickly make notes on their device. At first, Maya found it flattering that the alien was so interested in learning about humans. "What exactly are you writing down?" Maya asked as they paused near the electron microscope. "I am recording your display behaviors," Zix replied matter-of-factly. "Your species seems to have very complex rituals. The way you adjust your outer garment, the manner in which you arrange your head covering, the frequency of your grooming gestures, all very significant." Maya laughed. "Oh, that's just normal human behavior. I'm not really performing any rituals. I'm just being myself." Zix's eyes grew even wider, if that was possible. "Fascinating. So these are unconscious behaviors. Even more significant for my research." The tour continued, and Maya began to relax. Zix seemed genuinely curious about everything, asking questions about human technology, culture, and daily life. Their questions were sometimes odd, but Maya attributed that to them being from a completely different world. "Why do humans spend so much time in small enclosed spaces?" Zix asked as they entered Maya's office. "You mean rooms? Well, we like privacy. We need personal space to think, work, and relax." "Privacy," Zix repeated, making more notes. "Personal space. These are important concepts. On my world, we live very differently." Maya was curious about Zix's home planet, but before she could ask more questions, her colleague Dr. James Park knocked on the door. "Maya, are you ready for the evening briefing?" he asked, then noticed Zix. "Oh, you must be our visitor from space. Welcome to Earth." Maya watched as Zix immediately began taking notes again, this time focusing on the interaction between her and James. The alien seemed particularly interested when James complimented Maya's new haircut and when she laughed at his joke about the broken coffee machine. Your species has very complex social interactions, Zix observed after James left. There are many subtle communications happening beneath the surface. As the day ended, Maya offered to show Zix to their temporary living quarters. The research center had set up a small apartment in the residential building next to the laboratory, complete with modified furniture to accommodate their alien guests. This is your bedroom, Maya explained, opening the door. The bathroom is through here, and the kitchen is just down the hall. Zix examined everything with intense curiosity. When Maya demonstrated how to use the shower, she noticed Zix positioning themselves near the doorway, watching her every movement as she adjusted the water temperature and explained the soap and shampoo. These cleansing rituals are performed in private, Zix asked. Yes, definitely private. Maya emphasized, humans value privacy, especially when bathing or changing clothes. Understood, Zix said, though they continued to peer around the door frame, taking notes. Maya felt a slight discomfort, but reminded herself that Zix was from a completely different culture. What seemed normal to humans might be completely foreign to them. She decided to be patient and understanding. I'll let you get settled in, Maya said, heading toward the door. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning at 8 for your first full day at the lab. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, Zix replied. I look forward to continuing my observations of human behavior. As Maya walked back to her own apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was slightly off about the way Zix had been watching her, but she pushed the thought away. After all, this was humanity's first real contact with an alien species. Of course, there would be cultural differences and misunderstandings. She had no idea that those misunderstandings were about to become much more significant than she could have ever imagined. In Zix's mind, the day had been full of promising observations about human courtship rituals, and Maya had been an excellent subject for study. The stage was set for what would become the most embarrassing and enlightening week of Maya's life. Maya woke up the next morning feeling refreshed and excited about her second day working with Zix. She had spent the evening reading more about alien cultures and felt better prepared for any unusual questions or behaviors. What she didn't expect was to find Zix crouched outside her bedroom window with what looked like a pair of binoculars. What are you doing? Maya gasped, pulling her robe tight around herself as she opened the window. Zix looked up with genuine excitement, their large eyes practically glowing. Good morning, Dr. Rodriguez. I have been conducting early morning observations of your daily preparation rituals. This is extremely valuable data for my research. Maya's face turned bright red as she realized what had happened. You were watching me get dressed? Yes, it was most enlightening, Zix replied, consulting the glowing notepad. I observed your morning grooming sequence, your garment selection process, and what appeared to be a complex decision-making ritual involving your reflection in the mirror. Your species has fascinating preparation behaviors, Zix. That's not okay, Maya said, trying to keep her voice calm despite her embarrassment. Humans need privacy, especially when we're changing clothes or getting ready. You can't watch people without their permission. Zix tilted their head, looking confused. But how else am I supposed to study natural human behavior? Surely observing authentic daily routines is essential for proper research. Maya took a deep breath. I understand you're trying to learn, but there are boundaries, personal boundaries. Some things are private, and watching someone get dressed is definitely private. Personal boundaries, Zix repeated, making notes. Private dress changing. I will record these cultural rules. Good, Maya said, feeling relieved. Now, how about we meet in the lobby in 30 minutes, and I'll show you the proper way to observe human behavior? Zix nodded enthusiastically. Excellent. I look forward to learning these proper observation techniques. Maya closed the window and leaned against the wall, shaking her head. This was going to be more challenging than she had anticipated, but at least Zix seemed willing to learn and follow human customs. 30 minutes later, they met in the lobby and walked to the research center together. Maya felt confident that she had cleared up the misunderstanding and that the day would go much more smoothly. She was wrong. As they entered the main laboratory, Maya noticed that Zix immediately began scanning the room with intense focus. Dr. James Park was already there, setting up equipment for the day's experiments. "Morning, Maya," James called out. "Ready for another day with our space friend?" "Absolutely," Maya replied, smiling. "James, would you mind helping us with the spectrometer calibration today?" "Of course," James said, moving closer to Maya's workstation. "I've been looking forward to working with you on this project." Out of the corner of her eye, Maya noticed Zix suddenly duck behind a large piece of equipment. She thought it was odd, but continued her conversation with James. "The readings from yesterday were really interesting," James said, leaning over Maya's shoulder to look at the computer screen. "Your analysis was spot on." Maya felt pleased with the compliment and laughed. "Thanks, James. I spent hours going through those calculations." What Maya didn't see was Zix crouched behind the electron microscope, furiously taking notes and occasionally poking their head out to observe the interaction between her and James. The morning continued with Maya and James working closely together on their research. They shared coffee, discussed their findings, and collaborated on running various tests. It was a typical day at the lab, but Maya began to feel like she was being watched. Every time she looked around, she caught glimpses of Zix darting between equipment, always with that notepad in hand. When she tried to call Zix over to participate in the work, the alien would emerge from their hiding spot looking oddly excited. "Dr. Rodriguez," Zix said during one of these moments, "I have been observing your interactions with Dr. Park, and I have some fascinating observations to share." "Oh," Maya said, curious about what Zix had learned about human workplace dynamics. "Your behavior patterns suggest a complex social ritual," Zix explained, consulting their notes. "You engage in synchronized consumption of heated beverages. You respond positively to verbal affirmations, and you maintain decreased physical distance during collaborative activities." Maya blinked. "You mean drinking coffee together and working as a team?" "Precisely," Zix said, their eyes lighting up. "These appear to be bonding behaviors, very significant for my research on human social structures." James, who had been listening to the conversation, chuckled. "Your alien friend is quite the observer." "Maya, maybe they should write a paper on human workplace behavior." Maya laughed, but she noticed that Zix was taking notes again, this time focusing on her laughter and James's comment. During lunch break, Maya decided to check on Zix's progress. She found the alien in the small office that had been assigned to them, working intently on their tablet. "How's your research going?" Maya asked. "Exceptionally well," Zix replied. "I have compiled extensive data on human social interactions and behavior patterns. Would you like to see my preliminary findings?" "Sure," Maya said. Settling into a chair, Zix turned their tablet toward Maya, and her jaw dropped. The screen displayed a detailed report titled Human Mating Dance Observations. Subject: Dr. Maya Rodriguez. Maya's face went pale as she read the contents. The report included detailed sketches of her morning routine, descriptions of her grooming rituals, and extensive notes about her interactions with James. There were charts analyzing her laugh frequency, diagrams of her territory marking behavior at her workstation, and even observations about her food-sharing ceremonies with James. "Zix," Maya said slowly, "what exactly do you think you're observing?" "Courtship behaviors," Zix replied matter-of-factly. "Your species has elaborate mating rituals that involve careful grooming, territorial displays, and complex social signaling. I have been documenting what appears to be an active courtship sequence between you and Dr. Park." Maya felt her cheeks burning. "We're not. James and I are just colleagues. We work together." "This isn't courtship." Zix looked puzzled. "But the behavioral patterns are quite clear. The mutual grooming observations, the territorial proximity, the positive vocal responses to each other's presence. These are classic courtship indicators. Those are normal human friendships and work relationships. Maya explained, trying to keep her voice steady. Not everything humans do is related to romance. Fascinating, Zix said, making more notes. So humans engage in practice courtship behaviors even when not actively seeking mates. This suggests a highly complex social system. Maya realized that her explanation had only made things worse. Zix was now convinced that humans practice fake courtship as part of their daily social interactions. No, that's not what I meant, Maya said, but she could see that Zix was already deep in thought, probably developing new theories about human behavior. As the afternoon wore on, Maya became increasingly aware of Zix's presence. The alien continued to hide behind equipment, observing her interactions with James and other colleagues. Every friendly conversation, every shared laugh, every moment of professional collaboration was being documented and analyzed through the lens of alien courtship theory. Maya began to feel self-conscious about every little thing she did. She found herself overthinking simple interactions, wondering how they might be interpreted by her alien observer. When James complimented her work, she barely managed to smile. When he offered to share his sandwich, she politely declined. When he suggested they grab coffee after work, she quickly made an excuse about being busy. By the end of the day, Maya was exhausted from the constant feeling of being watched and analyzed. As she prepared to leave, she noticed Zix approaching with their tablet. "Dr. Rodriguez," Zix said, "I have updated my observations based on today's data. The courtship patterns are becoming increasingly clear." Maya looked at the screen and saw even more detailed charts and diagrams. Her day had been transformed into a scientific study of human mating behaviors, complete with timestamps and behavioral frequency measurements. Zix, Maya said tiredly, "We really need to talk about this tomorrow. I think there's been a major misunderstanding." "Of course," Zix replied happily. "I look forward to discussing my findings with you. This research will be invaluable for my home planet's understanding of human social structures." As Maya walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that this situation was spiraling out of control. What had started as a simple cultural exchange was turning into something much more complicated and embarrassing. She had no idea that tomorrow would bring even bigger surprises, and that Zix's misunderstanding was about to reach a whole new level of awkwardness. Maya spent her entire evening preparing for what she hoped would be a productive conversation with Zix. She had printed out information about human privacy, written down examples of normal workplace behavior, and even prepared visual aids to help explain the difference between friendship and romance. She was determined to clear up this misunderstanding once and for all. The next morning, Maya arrived at the lab early, hoping to have a private conversation with Zix before anyone else arrived. She found the alien already there, sitting at their workstation with multiple tablets spread out in front of them. "Good morning, Zix," Maya said, settling into a chair across from them. "I think we need to have a serious talk about human behavior and boundaries." Zix looked up with bright, eager eyes. "Excellent timing, Dr. Rodriguez. I have been analyzing my data all night, and I believe I have made a breakthrough in understanding human courtship patterns." Maya's heart sank, but she pressed on. "Actually, that's what I wanted to discuss. I think there's been a major misunderstanding about what you've been observing. Please allow me to explain my findings first," Zix said, turning one of their tablets toward Maya. "In my culture, we have something called life glimpsing, which is how we determine compatibility with potential mates." Maya leaned forward, curious despite her apprehension. "Tell me more about that. On my planet, courtship involves careful observation of a potential partner's daily routines," Zix explained. "We hide and watch how they go about their normal activities. The more they seem to notice and react to being observed, the more interested they are in the relationship." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "So when I got upset about you watching me get dressed, it was a positive response," Zix said excitedly. "Your emotional reactions, your attempts to avoid observation, your increased self-awareness, all classic signs of courtship engagement in my culture." "But that's not how humans work," Maya said firmly. when we get upset about being watched, it means we actually want you to stop watching us. Zix's expression grew confused. But that makes no sense. Why would you signal interest by expressing discomfort? Maya rubbed her temples, feeling a headache coming on. We're not signaling interest. We're signaling that we want privacy and personal space. Privacy, Zix repeated slowly. Personal space. These concepts are very different in my culture. I understand that, Maya said patiently. But while you're here on Earth, you need to follow human customs. That means no hiding, no watching people without permission, and definitely no analyzing normal workplace interactions as courtship behavior. Zix nodded thoughtfully. I see. So you are teaching me that human courtship is more subtle. The real signals must be hidden beneath these privacy behaviors. No, Maya said, her voice rising slightly. That's not what I'm saying at all. James and I are just co-workers. We're not involved in any kind of romantic relationship, Dr. Park. Zix said, making notes. Yes, I have extensive observations about your interactions with him. Very promising courtship development. Maya felt her frustration growing. No matter how she explained it, Zix seemed to interpret everything through the lens of their own culture's courtship rituals. Zix, I need you to promise me something, Maya said. No more hiding. No more secret observations. No more analyzing my interactions with James or anyone else's romantic behavior. I understand, Zix said, though their expression suggested they didn't really understand at all. I will be more discreet in my observations. Maya realized that her attempt to communicate had somehow made things worse. Zix seemed to think that she was asking for more subtle spying, rather than no spying at all. The situation became even more complicated. When James arrived at the lab a few minutes later, Maya watched in horror as Zix immediately began what they probably thought was discreet observation, ducking behind equipment and peeking out whenever James spoke. Maya, is everything okay? James asked, noticing her tense expression. You seem stressed. I'm fine, Maya said quickly, shooting a warning glance at Zix, who was now crouched behind a filing cabinet with their notepad. Are you sure? You've been acting a bit strange lately, James said, moving closer to Maya's workstation. Maya felt trapped. If she acted normal and friendly with James, Zix would interpret it as courtship behavior. If she was distant and cold, James would think something was wrong, and Zix would probably see that as some kind of advanced courtship strategy. I'm just tired, Maya said, trying to strike a balance. Long nights working on research. Well, if you need any help, just let me know, James said kindly. We're a team, after all. Maya managed a weak smile, but she could see Zix frantically taking notes about the interaction. The alien was clearly excited about what they perceived as a significant development in the courtship process. As the day progressed, Maya began to notice that Zix was doing more than just observing. The alien seemed to be actively trying to create opportunities for Maya and James to interact. First, Zix rearranged the lab schedule so that Maya and James would be working on the same experiments. Then, they mysteriously disappeared every time Maya needed assistance, forcing her to ask James for help. By lunchtime, Maya realized that Zix was deliberately manipulating situations to bring her and James together. Zix, Maya said when she finally cornered the alien in the supply closet. What exactly are you doing? I am facilitating your courtship process, Zix replied proudly. Since you explained that human courtship is more subtle, I decided to help by creating natural opportunities for interaction. That's not helping, Maya said desperately. You're making everything worse. Worse? Zix looked genuinely confused. But Dr. Park seems very responsive to the increased interaction opportunities. His positive body language and verbal engagement have increased by 47%. Maya stared at Zix in disbelief. You're measuring James's responses? Of course, Zix said, showing Maya their tablet. I have detailed metrics on both of your behavioral patterns. The data clearly shows that the courtship is progressing successfully. Maya looked at the screen and saw charts tracking everything, from how often James smiled at her to the average distance they maintained while working together. It was like looking at a scientific study of her own life. Except the conclusions were completely wrong. Zix, this has to stop, Maya said firmly. You're misunderstanding everything. I understand your concern, Zix replied. Perhaps I have been too obvious in my assistance. I will be more subtle in my facilitation efforts. Maya realized with growing horror that Zix was now planning to become even more involved in what they perceived as her love life. That afternoon, Maya discovered exactly what Zix meant by subtle facilitation. Her lab coat had been hung on a hook that was slightly too high, forcing her to reach up and ask James for help. Her computer had been mysteriously reset to display an error message that required James's technical expertise to fix. Even her lunch had been moved to a table that happened to be right next to where James always sat. This is ridiculous, Maya muttered as she watched Zix pretend to work while obviously monitoring her interactions with James. The final straw came when Maya discovered a small, blinking device hidden behind her computer monitor. When she confronted Zix about it, the alien explained that it was a behavioral documentation device designed to record her interactions for scientific analysis. You put a camera in my workspace? Maya exclaimed. A very small one, Zix said, as if that made it better. I wanted to capture authentic courtship behaviors without the interference of obvious observation. Maya felt her composure finally cracking. Zix, this is completely unacceptable. You cannot record people without their permission. You cannot manipulate situations to force interactions. And you absolutely cannot continue to misinterpret normal human behavior as romance. Her raised voice caught the attention of other lab workers, including James, who came over to see what was happening. Is everything all right here? James asked, looking between Maya and Zix with concern. Maya opened her mouth to explain, but Zix suddenly brightened up with excitement. Excellent, Zix said, making rapid notes. Passionate emotional displays in the presence of the potential mate. This is a significant development in the courtship process. Maya stared at Zix in complete disbelief. Even her frustration and anger were being interpreted as romantic behavior. James looked completely confused. Courtship process? What are you talking about? Maya realized that she was going to have to explain the entire embarrassing situation to James, and probably to the entire lab staff. The misunderstanding had grown so large that it was now affecting her professional relationships and her reputation. We need to talk, Maya said to both James and Zix, all of us, right now. As they headed toward the conference room, Maya wondered how a simple cultural exchange had turned into such a complicated mess. She had no idea that the worst was yet to come, and that Zix's misunderstanding was about to reach epic proportions. Maya had reached her breaking point. The situation with Zix had spiraled so far out of control that she couldn't even think straight anymore. Every interaction at work felt awkward. Every conversation with James seemed loaded with hidden meaning that wasn't actually there, and worst of all, she had no idea how to fix any of it. That evening, Maya sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. She needed help, but she wasn't sure who to call. How do you explain to someone that an alien thinks you're in love with your coworker because they've been secretly filming you and misinterpreting basic human politeness as courtship rituals? The next morning, Maya arrived at the lab to find Zix waiting for her with what appeared to be a thick folder and an expression of barely contained excitement. Dr. Rodriguez, Zix said, practically bouncing on their feet, I have completed my comprehensive analysis of human courtship behavior. I believe this research will revolutionize my planet's understanding of your species. Maya felt a sense of dread wash over her. What kind of analysis? I have created a complete manual, Zix announced proudly, opening the folder to reveal pages and pages of detailed charts, diagrams, and observations. I call it the Complete Guide to Human Romantic Behavior, a scientific study. Maya's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. There were detailed illustrations of her daily routines, behavioral charts tracking her interactions with James, and even a section titled Advanced Courtship Strategies when humans pretend to be uninterested. Zix, this is, Maya started, but she couldn't find the words to express her horror. Comprehensive, Zix suggested helpfully. Yes, I have documented everything. Your morning preparation rituals, your workplace territorial behaviors, your complex, emotional responses to observation, and most importantly, your sophisticated signaling techniques with Dr. Park. Maya flipped to a page titled Strategic Garment Adjustment and saw detailed notes about how she had tucked her hair behind her ear during conversations. Another section called Proximity-Based Attraction Signals analyzed how often she and James worked at the same lab bench. This is not a courtship manual, Maya said weakly. This is just normal human behavior. Exactly, Zix exclaimed. That's what makes it so brilliant. Your species has evolved to make courtship appear completely natural and unconscious. It's evolutionary genius. Maya sat down heavily in her chair. She realized that no matter what she said, Zix would interpret it through their own cultural understanding. The alien had created an entire theory about human romance based on completely normal workplace interactions. Zix, Maya said carefully, I need you to understand something very important in human culture. What you call life glimpsing is considered inappropriate and invasive. When humans want to form romantic relationships, we talk to each other openly and honestly. Zix said, making notes. So the direct approach is reserved for advanced stages of courtship. Fascinating. Maya rubbed her temples, feeling another headache coming on. She needed professional help with this situation, but she wasn't sure where to find it. That's when she remembered Dr. Lisa Chen, the cultural anthropologist who worked in the building next door. If anyone could help her navigate this cross-cultural disaster, it would be someone who specialized in understanding different societies and their customs. Zix, Maya said, standing up with renewed determination, I want you to meet someone. There's another scientist here who studies different cultures. Maybe she can help us understand each other better. Another researcher? Zix's eyes lit up with interest. Does she also study human courtship behaviors? In a way, Maya said, already heading toward the door. Come on, let's go see her. Dr. Chen's office was filled with artifacts from different cultures around the world, and Maya felt hopeful that someone surrounded by so much diversity would be able to help solve their communication problem. Dr. Chen, Maya said after knocking on the door, I have someone I'd like you to meet. This is Zix, our alien exchange student. Dr. Chen looked up from her desk with interest. An actual extraterrestrial visitor. How exciting. I've been hoping to meet you. The pleasure is mine, Zix said politely. I have been conducting research on human social behaviors, particularly courtship rituals. Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose with interest. Courtship rituals. That's fascinating. What have you observed? Maya watched nervously as Zix launched into a detailed explanation of their research, complete with charts and diagrams from their manual. Dr. Chen listened with the patient attention of someone accustomed to studying different cultural practices. This is very interesting, Dr. Chen said when Zix finished. Your observations are quite detailed. But I'm curious about something. You mentioned that in your culture, courtship involves watching potential partners from hidden locations. Yes, Zix replied enthusiastically. We call it life glimpsing. It's how we determine compatibility. The more the observed individual reacts to being watched, the more interested they are in forming a relationship. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. And you've been applying this framework to human behavior? Exactly, Zix said. Dr. Rodriguez has been an excellent subject for study. Her responses to observation have been very encouraging. Maya felt her face burning with embarrassment, but Dr. Chen maintained her professional composure. I see the problem, Dr. Chen said gently. Zix, what you're describing is indeed a valid courtship practice for your species. But human courtship works very differently. How so? Zix asked, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. For humans, privacy and personal space are fundamental needs, not courtship signals, Dr. Chen explained. When a human becomes upset about being watched, it means they actually want the observation to stop. It's not a sign of romantic interest. Zix looked confused. But then how do humans signal romantic interest? Through direct communication, shared activities, and mutual consent, Dr. Chen replied. We ask each other on dates, we express our feelings with words, and we respect each other's boundaries. Maya watched as understanding slowly dawned on Zix's face. The alien's large eyes grew even wider as they processed this information. You mean? Zix said slowly, when Dr. Rodriguez expressed discomfort about my observations. She actually wanted me to stop? Yes, Dr. Chen confirmed. And her friendly interactions with Dr. Park are likely just professional collegiality, not romantic signaling. Zix sat back in their chair, looking stunned. I have made a terrible mistake. Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. Finally, someone had managed to explain human behavior in a way that Zix could understand. It's not terrible, Maya said gently. It's just a cultural misunderstanding. Now that we understand each other better, we can move forward. But Zix looked devastated. I have been violating your cultural norms this entire time. I have been causing you distress when I thought I was participating in your courtship customs. You didn't know, Maya said, feeling sympathy for the alien who had been trying so hard to understand human culture. You were doing what seemed natural based on your own experiences. Dr. Chen smiled. This is actually a perfect example of why cultural exchange is so important. By learning about our differences, we can avoid these kinds of misunderstandings in the future. Zix looked up with sudden interest. Could this experience be valuable for research purposes? Absolutely, Dr. Chen said. Understanding how different species interpret social behaviors could be incredibly important for future interplanetary relations. Maya saw a spark of excitement return to Zix's eyes. The alien was beginning to see their embarrassing misunderstanding as a potential breakthrough in scientific understanding. Perhaps, Zix said thoughtfully, we could collaborate on documenting these cultural differences. It might help other members of my species avoid similar mistakes when they visit Earth. That's a wonderful idea, Dr. Chen said. Maya, would you be interested in contributing to this research? Maya looked at Zix, who was watching her with hopeful eyes. Despite all the embarrassment and frustration of the past few days, she realized that their misunderstanding had led to something potentially valuable. I think that could be really important work, Maya said. Understanding each other's cultures is the first step toward building better relationships between our species. Zix's face brightened with genuine happiness. Then perhaps my mistakes will serve a useful purpose after all. Maya smiled, feeling like they had finally found a way to turn their cultural disaster into something positive. Little did she know that this revelation was just the beginning of an even more important discovery. Over the following weeks, Maya found herself working more closely with Zix than she had ever imagined possible. What had started as an embarrassing cultural misunderstanding had evolved into one of the most important research projects of her career. Dr. Chen had suggested they begin by creating a comprehensive comparison between human and thoraxian social customs. Zix was eager to share details about their home planet's culture, while Maya provided insights into human behavior and social norms on my world. Zix explained during one of their research sessions, privacy is a completely foreign concept. We live in large community groups where everyone's daily activities are visible to everyone else. That explains a lot, Maya said, making notes. No wonder you didn't understand why I was upset about being watched. In your culture, observation is normal and expected. Exactly, Zix replied. And courtship through life glimpsing makes sense. In our society, because everyone is always watching everyone else anyway. The difference is in the focus and intensity of the observation. Maya was fascinated by how logical Zix's behavior had been within the context of their own culture. So, when someone on your planet wants to court someone else, they just watch them more carefully. Yes, and the person being observed can choose to either ignore the watcher, which signals disinterest, or respond to the observation, which encourages further courtship. Zix explained, your reactions to my watching seemed like clear encouragement in my cultural framework, but they were actually the opposite. Maya laughed. I was trying to discourage you, not encourage you. I understand that now, Zix said, their large eyes showing what Maya had learned to recognize as amusement. Human courtship is much more direct and verbal than ours. As they continued their research, Maya discovered that many of her assumptions about normal behavior were actually quite specific to human culture. Things she had taken for granted, like the importance of personal space and privacy, were not universal concepts. This research could be incredibly valuable, Dr. Chen said during one of their weekly meetings, not just for understanding Thoraxian culture, but for preparing for contact with other alien species in the future. I never thought about it that way, Maya admitted. I was so focused on the embarrassment of the misunderstanding that I didn't realize how much we were actually learning. Zix had been surprisingly helpful in explaining the scientific method used by their species. On my planet, we study behavior by observing it in natural settings. The idea of asking someone directly about their feelings or intentions is considered unreliable, because people might not tell the truth. That's interesting, Maya said. Humans do sometimes lie or hide their true feelings, but we still value direct communication as the most respectful way to interact. And we've learned that respecting boundaries is more important than gathering complete information, Zix added. This has been a valuable lesson for me. The breakthrough in their research came when Maya suggested they create a practical guide for future cultural exchanges. What if we wrote a handbook for both species? Something that could help humans understand Thoraxian customs and help Thoraxians understand human behavior? That's brilliant, Dr. Chen said. A cross-cultural communication guide based on real experience rather than theoretical assumptions. Zix was enthusiastic about the project. I could contribute information about Thoraxian social structures, courtship practices, and communication methods. My mistakes could serve as examples of what not to do when interacting with humans. Maya smiled, and I could explain human concepts like privacy, personal boundaries, and consent. We could help future visitors avoid the kinds of misunderstandings we experienced. As they worked on the guide, Maya found herself developing a genuine friendship with Zix. The aliens' curiosity and willingness to learn from their mistakes was endearing, and their unique perspective on human behavior was often insightful. You know, Maya said one day as they reviewed their latest chapter, I think I learned as much about humans as you did during this whole experience. How so? Zix asked. I realized how much I take for granted about my own culture, Maya replied. Things like privacy and personal space seem obvious to me, but they're actually quite complex concepts that need to be explained clearly to someone from a different background. James had eventually learned about the entire situation, and rather than being embarrassed or upset, he had found it fascinating. So an alien thought Maya and I were in love because we worked well together. He had said with a laugh, that's actually kind of flattering. Dr. Park has been very understanding about the whole situation, Zix noted. His reaction helped me realize that humans can find humor in cultural misunderstandings rather than taking offense. That's another good point for our guide, Maya said. The importance of maintaining a sense of humor when dealing with cultural differences. Their research had attracted attention from the broader scientific community. Other researchers were interested in their work, and there was talk of expanding the cultural exchange program to include more alien species. We've received a message from the Thoraxian High Council, Dr. Chen announced during one of their meetings. They're requesting copies of our research to help train other Thoraxian diplomats who might visit Earth. Zix looked pleased. My people are very interested in avoiding similar misunderstandings in the future. Your patience and willingness to teach me about human culture has been invaluable, and your openness to learning and changing your behavior made all the difference, Maya replied. If you had insisted on continuing your observations after I explained they were inappropriate, this could have ended very differently. As Zix's stay on Earth neared its end, Maya found herself feeling genuinely sad about their upcoming departure. What had started as an awkward assignment had become a meaningful collaboration and friendship. I will miss working with you, Zix said as they put the finishing touches on their cultural guide. This experience has taught me so much about the importance of understanding different perspectives. I'll miss you too, Maya said. You've helped me see my own culture in a completely new way. Their final project was a presentation to the International Space Research Institute's Board of Directors. Maya and Zix stood together, explaining how their misunderstanding had led to breakthrough research in interspecies communication. The key insight, Maya explained to the audience, is that behavior that seems strange or inappropriate in one culture might be perfectly normal in another. Understanding the underlying cultural context is essential for successful communication, Zix added, and we learned that patience, respect, and willingness to adapt are crucial when interacting with different species. My initial mistakes taught me the importance of asking questions rather than making assumptions. The presentation was well received, and several board members expressed interest in expanding the cultural exchange program based on Maya and Zix's research. After the presentation, Maya and Zix walked outside to where the transport ship would arrive to take Zix back to their home planet. Thank you for everything, Zix said. You could have reported my inappropriate behavior and had me sent home immediately, but instead you chose to help me understand and learn. Thank you for being so open to learning, Maya replied, and for showing me that even embarrassing mistakes can lead to important discoveries. As the transport ship landed, Maya felt a mixture of sadness and pride. The past few weeks had been challenging, but they had resulted in work that could benefit both species for years to come. I hope we can collaborate again someday, Zix said as they prepared to board the ship. I hope so too, Maya said, and next time, we'll know how to communicate much more effectively. As the ship disappeared into the sky, Maya reflected on how much had changed since that first awkward morning when she had found Zix watching her through her bedroom window. What had seemed like a disaster at the time had become one of the most meaningful experiences of her scientific career. She returned to her lab, where James was waiting with a cup of coffee and a smile. So, he said, how does it feel to be a pioneer in interspecies relations? Maya laughed. Pretty good, actually. Though I think I've had enough alien courtship theories to last a lifetime. Fair enough, James said. But you have to admit, it makes for a great story. Maya nodded, looking at the completed cultural guide on her desk, and hopefully, it will help prevent other people from having to live through their own alien courtship misunderstandings. As she settled back into her regular research routine, Maya knew that her life had been permanently changed by her experience with Zix. She had learned valuable lessons about communication, cultural understanding, and the importance of approaching differences with patience and humor. Most importantly, she had discovered that even the most embarrassing misunderstandings could lead to genuine friendship and meaningful scientific progress, as long as everyone involved was willing to learn and grow from the experience.